This video is a quick how-to on how to make a lane divider for the Aurora AFX or Ultra 5 slotless race car system. The problem with the AFX system is, unlike the Tyco TCR, is that there were no lane dividers, so if a person wanted to pass somebody around a turn, they were unable to, just to the nature of the system. The car would obviously gravitate to the outside lane. So what's going to happen here is the lane dividers that I've made are going to allow an opponent to be able to speed in the inside lane by having two turns. Now this one here is one that's already completed, and then I've got one that's almost ready to go, and then one that I'm going to demonstrate what to do. So a few things that I think are necessary for this are you're going to need a Dremel tool in order to carve the groove out through the center. You're also going to need a ruler and a pencil in order to, or a Sharpie in order to mark things off. So the first thing I'm going to do is to mark off the center portion and just go halfway between it. I like to use millimeters, and so 11 millimeters is roughly about where things are at. And once I get this marked off, then I will use the Dremel tool and the cutting wheel in order to cut the groove. Now, the piece of styrene plastic that I am using measures roughly, it's a little bit, it's about 1 millimeter thick. And again, you're going to have to decide, based on the materials that you have on hand, what type of the thickness that you want the groove to be, as well as the cutting wheel or whatever you're going to use to create the inside channel for it to run on. Okay, so now I'm going to connect the dots. I find the Sharpie is easier to use than the pencil. Could use a pencil, I suppose. There. Now the cutting wheels that I use, it's the heavy duty cut off wheel, number 420, and I also have my Dremel hooked up to the snake here, so that way I can easily get the nice cut. The depth, it's kind of up to you how deep you want to go. The piece that I cut out of the styrene plastic is approximately 10 millimeters high, and that was just a number that I chose so that way any of the tall cars would not scoot over the edge. It's a little bit taller than the rails here, but I wanted to make sure that it was going to guide it nice and easy. Alright, so now we're going to do the cutting, and the first thing I do is I score the whole thing, and a moderate speed. It is going to melt the plastic somewhat. That's okay. Now I will make a deeper groove and actually go all the way through it. The AFX has some major supports here, and I'm not going to cut those all the way through. I'm going to leave that so that way the two halves don't fall apart. The cutoff wheel, by the way, is pretty much the same thickness as the piece of plastic that I'm going to insert. That's why I was saying you have to be the judge as to what thickness you want your divider to be. I wanted this to be as thin as possible, and most of the cars can go through the lanes. The wider ones, like the Porsche 934, Dodge Magnum, the BMW 320i, and the trucks, they don't. The wheel wells are too wide to go through it. A little bit faster RPMs. Okay, now I need to remove all the melted plastic, and so I just use the edge of my metal ruler, scrape that off. Comes off very nice and neat. Dump that in the trash. Get another little scrape. I do feel a little bit of a lump here, and the cleanup is pretty easy to do. Now the next thing I'm going to take is my flat file. You can get these at any hardware store. They usually come in a set of 6. This is the square one, and again, it just happens to be just the right diameter, or not diameter, but just the right thickness to go in between. And I will also use that to clean up on the outside edges where the divider is going to, lane divider is going to go. looks like this ending one, I need to cut just a bit thicker, a bit more. That looks good. Here down to the end. Now it's time to make the divider. So the divider that I'm making is just out of styrene plastic that I got from Squadron. And again, use the ruler, mark it off 10 millimeters. And this is just what I had on hand. It's not necessarily what you have to buy. You may be able to find the strips that are made by Evergreen scale models. And they have all sorts of strips and different thicknesses and widths and lengths, and so you know, this is just what I happen to have on hand, and it works out pretty well. So now I'll draw the line. It's always good to mark off several points if you're not familiar with this hobby scratch building. Now the next thing you want is a very sharp X-Acto knife. I particularly like the number 2 size and the larger size handle. Now the ruler that I have here, it's a steel ruler, and it also has a cork bottom, and so that enables me to have a nice grip on that to prevent it from slipping. And all I'm going to do is just score this. That's it. Just score it. Okay. Now, break the plastic right off. There we go. Now we have our strip. Now I need to get the right length. So I'm going to insert this in. And this is where you do your test fitting. You see if it's long enough, you see if you need to do any trimming, you need to see if you need to do the edge a little bit more, or dig down a little bit more. So now I'm going to make this exactly the same length. And again, I will do a score. And that completes that. So, in a very short while, now you have instantly a lane divider, so now the cars can go on the inside lanes. To keep this in permanently, there's what I use is the Ambroid Pro Weld, and that literally melts the two pieces of plastic together. You can also use a heat gun and help shape it just a bit if you find that things aren't quite to your satisfaction. But anyway, I hope you found this tutorial helpful, and will enable you to create some inside turns for your AFX Slotless Speed Steer or Ultra 5 system.